United Nations scientists recently released a climate report that was a damning indictment of failed climate leadership. It forces us to reckon with a stark reality, warned UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The crisis is here, it is all around us. Kehkashan Basu founded the Green Hope Foundation when she was 12 years old, to teach the UN's Sustainable Development Goals through grassroots action like tree planting. Green Hope now has over 1,000 members across Canada, Suriname, the Middle East, India, Nepal, and Liberia. At age 12, she was elected United Nations Environment Program's Global Coordinator for Children and Youth. She won the 2016 International Children's Peace Prize. She is a UN Human Rights Champion, a National Geographic Young's Explorer, and a member of Forbes 30 Under 30. She is only 22, and she has begun her studies at Cornell. The Global Peace Education Day Conference is pleased to welcome Kehkashan Basu.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everyone. My name is Kehkashan, and I am delighted to be here with you today to speak about a topic that is very close to my heart and something that I have been working on for the past 15 years now, which is how we can achieve feminist climate justice through peace education. So before I speak about that, I would like to give a bit of a background about how I got into this work. So my journey in this field started 15 years ago when at the age of 7, I saw this image of a dead bird with its belly full of plastic. And I still remember the agony that I felt thinking about the agony the bird must have gone through as it choked to death on plastic. And it made me realize that there was something inherently wrong with our world, this lack of peace that was there that allowed something like this to happen. And we as human beings were to blame for that. So that led me to take my first action for people in planet when I planted my first tree on my 8th birthday, which is actually World Environment Day, 5th June. So I thought that I was preordained to become an eco-warrior and save our communities and save our planet from total destruction. Now, I started working tirelessly on the ground after that, and about 5 years after that, I was invited to speak at the largest sustainable development conference of the time, Rio Plus 20, where out of the 50,000 delegates there, I was the youngest speaker, the youngest to address a press conference. And what I realized there was that out of these 50,000 delegates, only 5 were under the age of 18. And there was a severe lack of inclusivity of children, young people, women, marginalized communities, anyone who was affected by our world's most pressing challenges. They were not present at the table. And so I decided to address this lack of inclusivity, which led me to found Green Hope Foundation. So Green Hope Foundation today, 10 years later, is a global social innovation enterprise where our mission is really to create empathetic, responsible global citizens by becoming the bridge that spans the gulf of inequity and converting words into action so that we can truly realize a world where no one is left behind. And we understand firsthand how there are people and communities who are affected disproportionately by environmental disasters, social and economic challenges, but that creates in turn a lack of peace. And despite the ones suffering most from these challenges, their voices are not heard. So our ethos, therefore, is to use education that turns into action. And now we work in 26 countries with a reach of over 300,000 people. And our education is education for sustainable development. And one of the key components of ESD is peace education, because we recognize and we've seen firsthand how this lack of peace is really at the root of all of these challenges. And through this peace education, we use it as a transformative tool to provide the communities that we work with the understanding that protecting our planet and helping our fellow human beings, it's our moral responsibility, even if we aren't the ones responsible for causing this environmental and social destruction. And through this education, we empower young people, women and girls all around the world to become change makers in their own spheres of influence. And this is where feminist climate justice comes in, because we want to be able to turn all of these words into actions on the ground led by these young people, girls, and women. And our next step of this education is action and working with these communities to implement and install infrastructure led by our young, primarily female members to create these sustainable and peaceful societies. So I will actually share a few examples of our work on how we convert this peace education into action for climate justice on the ground. So the first example I'll give is in rural Liberia, where we installed a solar grid in a rural community that has enabled us to power their schools, restore education digitally, and institute vocational programs that benefit both the children and adults, and providing them with new skills that enable them to adapt to new livelihoods. And this has helped to really rebuild forward in these communities, because the children and youth are no longer falling into the vicious cycle of drugs and crime, which in turn has helped to alleviate this lack of peace. And at the same time, using this peace education that we provide them in the schools, they're able to take care of their local environment and take care of one another and create safe spaces, particularly for the women and girls with the solar streetlights, allowing them to have the freedom to come out of their homes in the evenings. The second example I'll give is of turtle conservation, which we work in all across the world. And the two examples here are of freshwater turtle conservation in Canada and sea turtle, the green turtle conservation in Oman. Now, often the first thing you think of when you speak of turtle and turtle conservation is not peace, but this forms a very important part of our peace education, because we teach the children that we work with how taking care of even the smallest creatures around you, even if you don't have direct contact with them, how that helps to create a peaceful environment. And by taking care of these endangered creatures who are dying because of human actions and providing them with that safe environment to really thrive, we teach them how that creates peace in nature, and it helps them to achieve inner peace as well, because they have done something good for the planet. The third example I'll give here is of solar cookers that we have distributed in rural Western India. And previously, these women and girls, they used to burn firewood to cook, which negatively impacted their health. It caused severe respiratory illnesses, and that in turn created a lack of peace, because these women were quite literally dying from inhaling these fumes. So now these solar cookers are improving their health tremendously, and they have the additional benefit of being climate smart. So that reduces their pollution levels in their village and aids in the creation of a net zero circular economy. And it also reduces the amount of time required to make the food, and that allows the women and girls the freedom to pursue their own interests and instill inner peace, and therefore create peaceful communities that are able to take care of the planet. The fourth example I'll give is of organic farming with indigenous women in rural Peru. So what we work with the indigenous women here on is teaching them on organic farming practices where they grow their own food and are able to achieve food security in a community that doesn't actually have access to nutritious, healthy food because of cash crops that have destroyed the land over there. And here we really empower these women to become climate leaders in their sphere of influence and lead the movement to ensure climate justice and food security all through this peace education, because by addressing food insecurity and addressing the impacts of climate change, we're able to create peace. And the final example I'll give is mangrove restoration for peace in Kiribati. So Kiribati is a small island developing state, and as one of the SIDS, it is the most vulnerable to climate change because their islands are literally sinking as I speak now. And the only thing that actually protects them from climate change-induced disasters are mangroves, which are also getting depleted due to increased urbanization. So we have planted thousands of mangroves across the Kiribati Islands, working with the women and children there, particularly for this restoration. Now, one of the impacts of climate change in this community is an increase in gender-based violence due to climate change. And by working to adapt to and mitigate climate change by planting these mangroves, we have seen a decrease in gender-based violence, which in turn has created peace. So this is kind of the circle that we have seen, the circularity that we have seen working on environmental actions and climate actions on the ground that in turn restores peace for the society. So at the end of the day, for us, working on feminist climate justice is something that we try to establish as the norm because we understand just how important it is to achieve peace and how, more importantly, peace education is so crucial in today's day and age. We are living in extremely trying times, and the time is now actually right to ensure that we're able to provide this peace education wherever we go, whether that's in schools or whether that's at home or just anywhere working and speaking with your peers. Because once you're able to receive this education, that in turn opens your eyes to the world around you and all of the challenges that the world is facing, you will then be able to convert that education into ground level action. Because not only are you aware yourself, you're able to spread that awareness to your family, to your community, and together, sharing your collective expertise, you would be able to turn that into ground level action for feminist climate justice. And that is exactly what we are doing at Green Hope Foundation to really create a just, equitable, and sustainable world where everyone has a life of dignity and is able to live in a peaceful environment. Thank you.